why Nkechi remained unmarried in her mother's house, because no man ever came to ask for her hand in marriage again. Few days later, she ran away to an unknown land in order to avoid the shame of being mocked by the villagers. Long, long ago, in a large, peaceful, calm village, lived a girl named ISIOMA. She was a very peaceful and cheerful girl who never looked down on anyone. All the mothers who had sons that were of marriageable age would always want their son to marry her and make her their daughter-in-law. ISIOMA was loved by many, but hated by her stepmother. Ndidi would always see reasons to hit and yell at her at all costs. She forbade ISIOMA from calling her mother and warned her never to touch her things. Her father would always encourage her to be very strong and never to lose balance. ISIOMA had a stepsister named Nkechi, who was so spoilt by her mother. Nkechi was so spoilt to the extent that she can't boil water, let alone cooking. Whenever it was time to help their father sell some farm produce at the village market, Nkechi would always fake her sickness just to avoid going to the market. And whenever their father sent her on an errand, her mother would be so angry and asked ISIOMA to go instead. ISIOMA was so good in all she does. She was well trained by her father. She was so caring and full of confidence, which made other maidens had divine jealousy towards her. She was her father's pride, and that made her father to be very proud of her. While Nkechi was a problem child who was lazy and roamed around the village with all kinds of men, and she was nothing compared to her sister ISIOMA. Nkechi despised ISIOMA so much and would always put her in trouble without hesitations. Whenever no one was in the house, Nkechi would go to the kitchen with her hungry friends and ate all the food and lied to her mother that it was ISIOMA, and her mother would punish ISIOMA for a crime she didn't commit. Not so long, rich suitors started to ask for ISIOMA's hand in marriage, but Ndidi would always look for a way to stop them from getting married to ISIOMA and recommended her daughter Nkechi instead. The suitors always reject Nkechi because of her wayward lifestyle known by all the men in the village. This happened so many times, and her father would always tell his wife Ndidi to stop her wicked acts and allow ISIOMA to marry in peace. Ndidi would always take his words as nothing and vowed never to allow ISIOMA marry a rich suitor or even getting married before her daughter, Nkechi. Despite their hatred towards her, ISIOMA still loved them wholeheartedly and prayed to God to change their hearts. One night, she had a dream, and in that dream, she saw a woman wearing her a royal crown. The next morning, she told her father about the dream, but he assured her that all was well. Days later, a beautiful woman with her son named Azubike came to the house to seek for Nkechi's hand in marriage. Nkechi and her mother rejected the man and his proposal. They called him a poor wretched man. They poured all kinds of insults on him. Nkechi's father tried to stop them, but they never listened to him. Ndidi recommended ISIOMA to the woman and her son Azubike. The woman pretended not to like ISIOMA, but Ndidi insisted her son Azubike to get married to ISIOMA instead of her daughter Nkechi. Deep down in the woman's heart, she was very happy that her plans worked. ISIOMA agreed to marry Azubike. Nkechi and her mother laughed at her for being a perfect match with Azubike. The wedding date was fixed to take place the upper week. ISIOMA was happy that finally she would be getting married and leave the house for her stepmother and her daughter, Nkechi. She also planned on taking her father along with her. The following week, which was on their wedding day, everyone gathered to celebrate with her, and they had more than enough to eat and drink. Not long, the groom came with his people in a grand style. Nkechi and her mother were shocked to see Azubike in a royal attire. The woman that came with him the previous week introduced herself as the queen in the neighboring village and also introduced Azubike as the king. What happened was that after his father's death, he was made the new king, and before he could resume his duty as a new king, according to the traditions, he would get married first before he would be able to fully resume his duty as the new king. Many maidens failed him because they all wanted to marry the king at all costs. He was advised by his friend to disguise himself and travel to the neighboring village to get a good woman for a wife. He picked interest in ISIOMA during the festival. He was also told by his friend that if he appears rich, her stepmother Ndidi won't allow her to marry before her daughter Nkechi. But if he appears poor, she would allow her, and that was why he hid his real identity and pretended to marry Nkechi in order for her to reject him and present ISIOMA instead. Nkechi blamed her mother for making her lose Azubike the king. After the wedding, ISIOMA moved to the palace with her husband and her father, while Nkechi remained unmarried in her mother's house, because no man ever came to ask for her hand in marriage again. Few days later, she ran away to an unknown land in order to avoid the shame of being mocked by the villagers, while ISIOMA lived happily with her husband.